Thanks for tuning in, and whoa, I'm not trying to start a controversy here. I'm genuinely interested in what people think of weight distribution hitches. When are they needed? When are they not needed? I think I have a prime kind of setup and example here where you may get a pretty divided crowd. So let me explain my setup and why I think I might actually not need one. So this tow vehicle here is a 2024 GMC Sierra 1500. It's got the Duramax engine, which doesn't really matter for this conversation, but it does have the max trailering package. So that does a few things, but it also gives you a stiffer rear spring setup, just in the rear. So I'm curious if anybody knows exactly what they did to accomplish that stiffer rear spring setup. You know, your Monroney and everything just says you got stiffer rear springs. But with this setup, because I got the crew cab and a few other options, I didn't quite get that like 2,000 plus payload. I do have 1,642 pounds of payload. Tongue weight is 1,290 pounds, and the tow weight from a traditional bumper pull is 12,900 pounds. So this here is a 2023 Forest River Ibex 19 QTH. It's a 25-foot long toy hauler from the coupler to the tail lights, so it's definitely on the smaller side. And the gross vehicle weight rating for the camper, the toy hauler, is 7,800 pounds if I have it absolutely maxed out. And here, as it sits empty, I put a couple extra mods in, a couple extra batteries and things. It's right at about like 4,900, probably like maybe 5,000 pounds at the absolute most. So I did measure the tongue weight, and after all my mods, as it sits empty, the tongue weight right now is 800 pounds. When I have all my machines loaded, like my ATV, my dirt bike, generators, and like extra water and stuff, the tongue weight drops down to right around 700 pounds, maybe 720 or so. I did this measuring with an actual tongue weight scale that I got off eTrailer. So I wanted to know my full range of tongue weights for my full range of like how much I'm going to be towing. Right between like 5,000. The most I'll ever tow with this is 7,000 pounds probably. So those are kind of the weights that I'm working with. So next I had to measure the actual squat, and I got the camera far away here just because I want you guys to see the little bit of dip in between there. It is squatting, but I measured, unloaded each side, and then I dropped the tongue weight on the truck, and then I measured each side, and then I took the averages of everything, and the total amount of squat with currently 800 pounds of tongue weight is only 1 5/8 inches to 1 3/4 inches. It's kind of right in between there. I was honestly expecting quite a bit more, but I mean, I'll take that. It kind of makes sense. It's a little over 50% of the maximum tongue weight rating for this vehicle, and like a little, well, if you include the weight of the hitch, that's right at about 50-ish% of the actual payload capacity. So 1 3/4 inches at the most is all the squat I should ever see on this. So my previous tow vehicle was a 2023 Toyota Tundra. It had the automatic self-load leveling rear air suspension. So that just pulled really smooth. Now for that specific Tundra that I had a maximum payload capacity of 1,400 pounds, maximum tongue weight of about 1,200 pounds, and a maximum bumper pull tow of about like 11,300. Now I'm one of the people that subscribes to, like, I'm never gonna tow 11,000 pounds with a half ton, certainly not on a regular basis, but you know, whatever. It can technically do it safely. So with that vehicle and that rear air suspension setup, I never felt any sway while pulling this exact trailer. And that was several thousand miles of highway traveling, country road traveling through the mountains, gravel roads. You know, we were passing semis, getting passed by semis. I never felt any weird sway with that vehicle. And as far as like porpoising goes, I may have felt like the slightest bit, but it was a very, very rare occasion to get like any kind of porpoising from the rear end of that thing. So I had a really pleasant towing experience with that Tundra, and I'm hoping, I never used the weight distribution hitch with that vehicle and that setup. I'm hoping that I can get away with the same here. So taking all that into consideration, my previous towing experience with the Tundra and no weight distribution hitch, and the fact that it was a very safe towing experience, never had really any sway, never had any braking issues, and I never had any handling issues either. It just pulled like a dream. So I'm wondering if I can get away, especially when you consider that the traditional guidance is you want your tongue weight to be approximately 10 to 15% of your actual trailer weight that you're towing. So with 800 pounds of tongue weight or 700 pounds of tongue weight, and this thing sitting at between 5,000 and 7,000 pounds, I'm working with that range. The tongue weight as it sits is right in that 10 to 15% range. So I'm wondering if I use a weight distribution hitch and redistribute some of that weight to the front axle of the truck and back to the tow axles, will I then be below that 10% number and possibly start to introduce the risk of additional sway? So that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like my numbers are actually spot on with this current setup. So I'm not doing this all willy-nilly either. I did absolutely just complete a test pull of about 29.5 miles. By the way, I got like 15.8 mpg pulling this thing. And the Tundra, the best I ever got was like 11. Most of the time I was getting 9 to 10 over a couple hundred miles of towing. So that's really exciting. But I wanted to test the sway. I wanted to test the porpoising. I wanted to test the rear suspension. Was I going to be using those bump stops too much? So I went over some highway. It was mostly highway, a little bit of suburban streets too. Railroad tracks. We went over some bridges with some undulations and things, and it pulled true and strong. I didn't notice any sway. I didn't notice any porpoising. I didn't notice any awkward handling in the front end. I didn't do an emergency braking maneuver out there, but I did kind of get on the brakes a little hard just to feel what the stopping power was like, and that felt good. So again, I want to be safe first and foremost, but again, I think that 10 to 15% tongue weight thing is going to come into play here. So I'm not even trying to like claim to be an expert here or like state fact, or this is just all my opinion, and I'm genuinely interested in what more experienced people have to say about this setup with these numbers. So my understanding of a weight distribution hitch is that it's all in the name. You're gonna, by using the pry bars or whatever those bars are called, you're redistributing forces to the frame of the actual trailer, and you're taking off weight from your hitch and you're redistributing that weight to the front drive vehicles and back to your axle. So that does a number of things, right? That decreases the actual weight on your hitch, which can then decrease the amount of squat you have, which means it can decrease the chances of you hitting your bump stops and creating a really rough ride. And it can potentially help to decrease porpoising as well. And by putting more weight over the drive axle, the steering axle up front, you're going to increase your braking abilities. You're going to increase your handling abilities too. And then of course, the benefits for the trailer, you're taking less weight off that front axle of the trailer, and you're kind of doing a better job of redistributing it to both of those axles on the trailer. So those are my basic understandings of a weight distribution hitch. Now, I wonder if some people are using them when they may not need to. Again, I think I'm like right in that possible gray zone of actually needing a weight distribution hitch. If I take 300 pounds off of this thing, I'm gonna be below that 10%. And there's tons of YouTube videos out there that demonstrate using models and things how too little of tongue weight can cause sway. And I don't want sway. That looks scary. I've seen plenty of videos, who hasn't? So kind of rambling, but what are your thoughts on all that? So I think where a weight distribution hitch would come in handy would be for perhaps a vehicle that is capable of towing the weight, but the tongue capacity is just too heavy for that specific trailer, camper, whatever. So by redistributing that tongue weight, you're still safely towing your full load, but you're also safely within your tongue weights. Another situation where I could see a weight distribution hitch coming in handy is perhaps if you have like a car trailer or something where you're constantly dealing with all sorts of different kinds of tongue weights, or perhaps, you know, like a construction trailer or something. So by having a weight distribution hitch, you can maybe take, 300, 400, 500, 600 pounds off of that tongue weight and redistribute it, and then get yourself back into that 10 to 15% tongue weight capacity, the recommended tongue weight. So am I right? Am I wrong? What are the other reasons people would want to use a weight distribution hitch? So I hesitated to even make this video because it's such a controversial subject. There's a lot of actual experts out there in the world, and then there's a lot of like internet experts, and I'm neither. So I'm just after kind of like the truth. I think I'm good to go here. What I think I am going to do is get some airbags to help assist in leveling out the load just a little bit, only for the purpose of leveling out that load. That's it, just to get rid of a little bit of that sag. So I'll maintain my 10 to 15% tongue weight and have a nice level towing experience. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on weight distribution hitches. When are they actually needed? When are they giving you adverse effects and making your towing experience less safe, perhaps? Are people using them correctly out there? Hey, thanks for tuning in.